What kind of man kills his own brother? What kind of uncle crosses the ultimate line with his brother's daughter? This is the horrifying true story that shocked Cedar Falls, Iowa, and divided an entire community. When 54-year-old Robert Morrison discovered that his trusted brother Danny had been sexually abusing his 19-year-old daughter Emma for months, he made a decision that would destroy his family forever. What started as an innocent family barbecue ended in cold-blooded murder, a missing body, and one of the most controversial trials in Iowa history. Before we dive into this disturbing case, make sure you hit that subscribe button and comment down below what state you're watching from. We're building the biggest true crime community here at American Shadow, and we want to hear from you. Now, let's get into it. The perfect American family, Cedar Falls, Iowa. Population, 39,000. The kind of small Midwestern town where everyone knows everyone, where families gather for Sunday dinners, and where secrets stay buried. The Morrison family seemed perfect from the outside. Robert Morrison, a hard-working construction supervisor, had lived in Cedar Falls his entire life. He was known around town as a stand-up guy, the kind of man who'd give you the shirt off his back. He coached Little League for 10 years, volunteered at the local food bank, and never missed a Sunday service at Cedar Falls Community Church. His wife, Linda, was a nurse at the county hospital. Sweet, caring, the kind of woman who baked cookies for the neighbors and always had a kind word for everyone. Together, they raised 3 children, 2 sons, Michael and James, and their youngest, their only daughter, Emma. Emma Morrison was 19 years old in the summer of 2023. She had just finished her first year at the University of Northern Iowa, studying elementary education. By all accounts, she was thriving. Good grades, lots of friends, a bright future ahead of her. But there was someone else in Emma's life. Someone the family trusted completely. Danny Morrison, Robert's younger brother, 48 years old, never married, no kids of his own. Danny worked as a mechanic at a local auto shop. He lived alone in a small house about 15 minutes from Robert's place. And he was, by all accounts, the fun uncle. The uncle who showed up to every birthday party with the biggest presents. The uncle who taught the kids how to fish, how to change a tire, how to throw a perfect spiral. The uncle everyone loved. But Danny Morrison was hiding something dark, something evil, something that would tear this family apart in the most violent way imaginable. The secret horror. It started in March of 2023. Emma had come home from college for spring break. She seemed different, quieter. Her mother Linda noticed she wasn't eating much. She'd lost weight, dark circles under her eyes. She spent most of her time locked in her bedroom. Linda chalked it up to stress. College was hard. Emma was probably just tired. But Emma wasn't tired. Emma was being abused. According to police reports and court documents, Danny Morrison had been sexually abusing Emma since January of that year. It had started when Emma's car broke down near campus. She called her Uncle Danny because he was a mechanic, because she trusted him. He came to help her, fixed her car right there on the side of the road. Then, he suggested they grab dinner, just the 2 of them, to catch up. That's when it started. Danny began texting Emma constantly. At first, the messages seemed innocent. How's school? Need anything? Your dad mentioned you made the dean's list. Proud of you. But the messages changed. They became inappropriate, sexual, threatening. According to Emma's testimony, Danny told her that if she didn't meet with him, if she didn't do what he wanted, he would tell her father that she'd been lying about where she was going at night, that she'd been drinking underage, that she'd been sleeping around. Emma was terrified. She was only 18 at the time. She didn't know what to do. She was scared her father would be disappointed in her. So, she did what Danny asked. For months, Emma met with Danny in secret. sometimes at his house, sometimes in his truck parked in empty lots. He would pick her up near campus, and she would disappear for hours. The abuse was systematic, calculated, evil. And Emma, she carried this secret alone until she couldn't anymore. The discovery. June 17, 2023. It was a Saturday. Beautiful summer day in Cedar Falls. Robert and Linda were planning a family barbecue. The whole family would be there. Michael and his wife, James and his girlfriend, Emma, and of course, Uncle Danny. Emma didn't want to go. That morning, she had a complete breakdown. She locked herself in the bathroom, crying so hard she couldn't breathe. Linda found her there, curled up on the floor, shaking. "Baby, what's wrong?" Linda begged. "Please, talk to me." And that's when Emma finally broke. Through tears, through sobs that shook her entire body. Emma told her mother everything, every horrific detail, every time Danny had touched her, every threat he'd made, every moment of abuse she'd endured in silence. Linda was devastated, shocked, sick to her stomach. But she knew. She had to tell Robert. When Robert came home from the hardware store that afternoon, Linda pulled him into their bedroom. She closed the door, and she told him what Emma had revealed. Witnesses later said they could hear Robert scream from outside the house. Pure rage, pure anguish, pure heartbreak. Robert Morrison, the gentleman who coached Little League and volunteered at the food bank, was transformed in that moment. According to Linda's testimony, he punched a hole through the bedroom wall. He flipped over the dresser. He was unhinged. "I'm going to kill him," Robert said. "I'm going to kill that son of a bitch." Linda begged him to call the police, to let the law handle it. But Robert wasn't listening. He stormed out of the house, got in his truck, and drove straight to Danny's place. The barbecue was about to turn deadly. The confrontation. Danny Morrison was in his garage when Robert arrived. According to neighbor testimony, Robert's truck came screeching into Danny's driveway around 2:30 in the afternoon. Robert jumped out, leaving the engine running, and marched straight into the garage. The neighbors heard yelling, loud, aggressive. Then, they heard Robert say something that would be repeated over and over in court. "You touched my daughter, you sick bastard. You're done." Danny tried to deny it at first. According to Robert's later confession, Danny laughed it off, said Emma was confused, said she was making it up. But Robert knew the truth. He'd seen his daughter's face, he'd heard her story, and he knew. His brother was lying. The confrontation escalated quickly. Robert grabbed a tire iron from Danny's workbench. Danny backed away, hands up, trying to calm his brother down. But Robert was beyond reason. "I gave you everything," Robert screamed. "I trusted you, we all trusted you. And you did this to my baby girl?" Danny made a fatal mistake. He tried to run. Robert swung the tire iron. The first blow hit Danny in the shoulder. He went down hard, tried to crawl away. But Robert followed him, and he swung again, and again, and again. By the time Robert stopped, Danny Morrison was dead. Blood pooled on the concrete garage floor. Robert stood over his brother's body when breathing hard, the tire iron still in his hand. And then, reality set in. Robert Morrison had just killed his brother. Robert didn't call the police. Instead, he made a decision that would haunt him for the rest of his life. He decided to hide the body. According to his confession, Robert wrapped Danny's body in a tarp from the garage. He loaded it into the bed of his truck, covered it with some old blankets and camping gear, and drove. He drove for nearly 2 hours, out to a remote area near the Cedar River, a place where he and Danny used to go fishing as kids, a place no one would think to look. Robert buried his brother in a shallow grave, in the woods, far from any trail or road. Then, he went home. When he walked through the door around 6 that evening, Linda and Emma were waiting. They knew where he'd been. They knew what he'd done. "It's over," Robert said. "He can't hurt you anymore." But it wasn't over. Not even close. The investigation begins. Danny Morrison was reported missing on Monday, June 19th. His boss at the auto shop called the police when Danny didn't show up for work and didn't answer his phone. That wasn't like Danny. He'd worked there for 15 years and had never missed a day without calling. The Cedar Falls Police Department launched a missing persons investigation. They went to Danny's house. His truck was there. His wallet was there. But Danny was gone. They interviewed neighbors. One of them mentioned seeing Robert Morrison at Danny's house on Saturday afternoon. Said he seemed angry. Said there was yelling. The police went to talk to Robert. At first, Robert tried to play it cool. Said he'd stopped by to invite Danny to the barbecue. Said Danny wasn't home. Said he left after a few minutes. But the detectives weren't buying it. They asked Robert to come down to the station for a formal interview. That's when Robert made his second fatal mistake. He agreed, without a lawyer. The confession. In the interrogation room, Robert Morrison held out for nearly 3 hours. He stuck to his story. He hadn't seen Danny. He didn't know where Danny was. He was worried too. But then, Detective Sarah Chen made a strategic move. She brought up Emma. "Robert," she said, "we spoke with your daughter this morning. Emma told us some very disturbing things about Danny. Things that, if they're true, would give you a pretty good reason to want to hurt him." Robert's face changed. The color drained from his cheeks. "What did she tell you?" he asked. "She told us everything, Robert. About the abuse. About what Danny did to her. And now Danny's missing. And you were the last person seen at his house. So I'm going to ask you one more time. Where is your brother?" Robert broke. He put his head in his hands, and he started to cry. Big, heaving sobs. And then, he confessed. He told them everything. The confrontation, the tire iron, the burial site by the river. "I had to protect my daughter," Robert said through tears. "He destroyed her. He destroyed our family. What was I supposed to do?" The police recovered Danny Morrison's body the next day. The community divides. When news of Robert Morrison's arrest hit Cedar Falls, the community erupted. Some people called Robert a hero, a father who did what any parent would do to protect their child. Petitions circulated online demanding his release. Yard signs appeared all over town reading "Free Robert Morrison" and "Justice for Emma." But others saw it differently. They said Robert was a murderer, that he should have called the police. That vigilante justice has no place in a civilized society. That no matter what Danny did, Robert had no right to take his life. The local news covered the story constantly. National media picked it up. Soon, the Morrison case was everywhere. On CNN, on Fox News, on every true crime podcast you could think of. Emma Morrison became the center of a national debate. Some people praised her courage for coming forward. Others, so cruelly, questioned her story, said she was lying, said she was trying to protect her father. The Morrison family was torn apart. Michael and James stood by their father. Linda was devastated, caught between her love for her husband and her horror at what he'd done. And Emma, 19 years old, was forced to relive her trauma on a national stage. The trial. The trial of Robert Morrison began in February of 2024. He was charged with second-degree murder. If convicted, he faced up to 50 years in prison. The prosecution's case was straightforward. Yes, Danny Morrison was a predator. Yes, he had abused Emma, but that didn't give Robert the right to kill him. The law exists for a reason. Robert should have called the police instead. He took the law into his own hands, and he committed murder. The defense argued something different. They called it crime of passion. They said Robert was in an extreme emotional state when he confronted Danny, that any father would have reacted the same way, that he wasn't thinking clearly, that he wasn't planning to kill Danny. It just happened. The star witness was Emma, taking the stand in front of a packed courtroom. Emma Morrison testified about the abuse. She described every horrific detail. The courtroom was silent. Some jurors were crying. Emma also testified about her father, about what kind of man he was, about how he'd always protected her, about how he'd been her hero her whole life. "My father didn't plan this," Emma said, tears streaming down her face. "He didn't wake up that day wanting to kill anyone. He found out his brother had been hurting me and he couldn't handle it. He snapped. I don't blame him. I blame Uncle Danny. Danny is the reason we're all here. Danny destroyed our family." The prosecution countered with their own witnesses. Medical examiners testified that Danny had been struck multiple times, suggesting Robert had time to stop, but didn't. That it wasn't just a momentary loss of control. It was prolonged. It was brutal. The trial lasted 3 weeks. The jury deliberated for 2 days. The verdict and aftermath. On March 4, 2024, the jury reached a verdict. Robert Morrison was found guilty of voluntary manslaughter, not second-degree murder, but manslaughter. The jury believed that Robert had acted in an extreme emotional state, but that he'd still made the conscious choice to kill his brother. The judge sentenced Robert to 15 years in prison. In the courtroom, Linda Morrison sobbed. Emma collapsed into her mother's arms. Michael and James looked devastated. Robert stood stoically. He didn't cry, he didn't react. He just nodded and accepted his fate. Before he was taken away, Robert was allowed to make a statement. "I don't regret protecting my daughter," he said. "I regret that it came to this. I regret that I didn't see what Danny was sooner. I regret that Emma suffered. But I don't regret making sure he could never hurt her again. If I could go back, I'd call the police. I'd let the system handle it. But in that moment, I wasn't thinking about the system. I was thinking about my little girl. And I'd do anything, to protect her." The courtroom was silent. Robert Morrison was led away in handcuffs. Where are they now? Today, Robert Morrison is serving his sentence at the Iowa State Penitentiary. He's been a model prisoner. He'll be eligible for parole in 2032. Emma Morrison left Cedar Falls. She transferred to a school out of state, where no one knows her name. She's in therapy. She's trying to heal. She doesn't do interviews. She doesn't talk about the case. Linda Morrison still lives in Cedar Falls. She visits Robert every month. She says she's forgiven him, but that their marriage will never be the same. Michael and James Morrison have both moved away. They rarely speak to the media. They're trying to move on. The house where the Morrisons raised their children has been sold. Danny Morrison's house still stands empty. No one wants to buy it. The Morrison family murders force us to confront an impossible question. What would you do if you discovered someone you trusted had been abusing your child? Would you call the police? Would you let the justice system handle it? Or would you, like Robert Morrison, take matters into your own hands? There's no easy answer. Robert Morrison is a killer. That's a fact. He took his brother's life with his own hands. He hid the body. He tried to cover it up. But Robert Morrison is also a father who was confronted with the worst nightmare any parent could imagine, a father who, in a moment of unimaginable pain and rage, made a choice he can never take back. Some people call him a hero. Some call him a murderer. Maybe he's both. What do you think? Was justice served in this case? Should Robert Morrison have received a longer sentence? Or should he have been acquitted completely? Comment down below and let us know. And don't forget to tell us what state you're watching from. We love hearing from our American Shadow family. If you enjoyed this video, or if it made you think, hit that like button and subscribe for more shocking true crime stories. We post new videos every week. And remember, the truth is always darker than you think. I'm American Shadow, and I'll see you in the next one. Stay safe out there.